Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wadcast podcast. I am your host, Eddie Ift. I feel a sneeze coming on. I feel it. Achoo! Yep, there it was. God, don't you love to sneeze? Somebody said once that, what is it, like this sneeze is equivalent to an orgasm? I don't know what it is, but that was not, I don't know about you, but that sneeze did not feel like that. All it did was put a weird pain in my back that I'm going to probably need to Theragun or Myopucks out of me. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about rehabbing all my injuries because I'm old. Anyway, but I've also heard your heart stops when you sneeze. Do you think that's true? Like you're not supposed to sneeze when you're driving. How do you stop, though? I don't know. If anybody knows about sneezing, let me know. I don't know much about sneezing. I could probably go on Google, find out about it. Speaking of which, I'm doing a show called Dr. Google in Adelaide, Australia. Coming up. I'm going down to Australia. I can't wait. I get to go see James Newberry, see how he's doing. He's a good buddy of mine. Great guy. His whole family. Great people. Runs Mode Athletics down there. CrossFit Games athlete. I'll be getting him on the show if he's healed up and ready to do it. He punctured his lung mountain biking. And I don't know what his situation is for this year for coming back. I think he's already back doing some kind of events. But we'll see when we get down there. Hopefully I'll get Rory Sloan, who's the captain of the Adelaide Crows, Australian rules team. I'll get him as a guest. I have so many amazing guests coming up. I feel like I want to pat myself on the back, or I want like people telling me, Eddie, wow, what a guest list you get. Because I do. I get really great guests. This week, Sage Hopkins is your guest for tonight. Like if you just tuned in, you want to know who he is. Some of you that are like CrossFit geeks will remember him and notice him from a lot of the CrossFit kind of endurance stuff. He's worked with Brian McKenzie at Power Speed Endurance. He's a swim coach with San Jose State. I stopped by San Jose State to interview him. He's the women's swim team coach. They don't have a men's team, and because of probably Title IX or whatever it is. But he is a wealth of information. We don't just talk swimming. We talk a lot of things. I loved it. It was one of the more interesting episodes to me. Coming up, so many great guests. Johnny Mosley, skier. Olympic skier, gold medalist. Who do I have coming up this week? Austin Malleola. I'm going to Boston to record Austin. Louise Eberts up in Vancouver, who's gymnastics expert. So it's very well-rounded. I get to you with everything from gymnastics to swimming to weightlifting to conditioning to mental coaching. Martial arts, Jeremy Lesniak. Talked to him up there in Boston, all about martial arts. So many good guests coming up. Please spread the word. We got to get this out there. I want Wadcast to be like the only place you go in to listen to podcasts. I mean, I want to be able to do this 5 days a week. So, listen, do me a favor, rate, review, comment. Like so many people have honestly done really, really, really nice reviews on iTunes. And I appreciate that. I take what you say. I take the criticism. I've tried to fix. Have you noticed? I've tried to fix all the mic issues, so we don't have those anymore. I try to talk less. That's. I have a problem. I can't. I can't just listen all the time. I'm not the best listener. My friends quizzed me last night while they were talking. They were like, okay, what have we said? I was like, you got me. But go to iTunes, rate, review, comment. Please give me 5 stars, and then you can criticize me. So many nice things. B. Cayman91 wrote, I've been listening to the show for years, and even with the changes, it hasn't lost its flair. Arguably better content and guests with the departure of previous hosts. Informational and entertaining. I look forward to new episodes each week. A few years back, I went to see Eddie perform just from being a fan of the show, and he was hysterical. Strongly recommend. That's great. We had a lot of things there. I just want to mention the past guests. We did have at the end there, we started to get a little weird, but I love doing the show with those guys, and they are both doing Great content out there. Arm & Hammer, if you want to see him, go to Arm & Hammer TV, and you can see Armin is nobody knows more about CrossFit than Armin. If you want to know what's going on, check out Armin's YouTube site. It's incredible. Armin's my go-to guy at all times. I just messaged him today to find out some information. And Scott has a great a couple things going on. Scott has a website or a podcast called Sisu Way that you can check out. And he also has Scott runs the old website, which is Postwad. So find him on Instagram, Postwad, and he's got the Sisu Way. And it was great working with them. The show's different now. I hope you enjoy it. Here's one. A Kenyatta. I hope Kenyatta. I hope this is the Pat Barber episode was one of my favorites. Love the chemistry between y'all. Enjoyed Barber's perspective on coaching and love his account of CrossFit history. More guests like him and maybe even the head HNIC himself. Let's go, Eddie. I do have something pretty cool to announce. I have talked to Dave Castro. He has agreed to come on the show. So we're just trying to work out a date. Gonna have Castro, and I would love to have Glassman on the show someday. It's just a matter of nailing him down when I'm around or he's around. You almost got to keep a monitor on him and see where he's going. And then if we coincide, I'm sure I could get him, and that would be a fun episode. I would love to talk to him. But like I said, great guests coming up. If you like the show, iTunes, rate, review, comment, or go to our Patreon. You go to CrossFit. You go to wadcast.com/Patreon, and you can find it there, or you can go to patreon.com/wadcast. And if you donate $5 a month, that's almost $1 an episode, a little more than $1 an episode, $5 a month. It's worth that. Show's worth that, isn't it? You get in the drawing for a Myopux, which is an electronic muscle stimulator and TENS machine. It dulls your pain, and it also expedites the inflammatory process, helping you get better quicker. I had dinner with a orthopedic surgeon the other night, a buddy of mine, and I was telling him all about Gary Reinhold and icing and using electronic muscle stimulator, and he was like, wow, you know your shit, Eddie. He kept making fun of me, called me Dr. Google. But this week, our winner, you get a leopard claw too, which is a scraper, and a gua schwa. Kim Cressage. I hope I pronounced your name right. People hate when you pronounce their name wrong, but it's a hard one. It's Kresge. Chris. Well, Kim, you're not going to be mad at me because you just won. All you do is send us an email, wadcastpodcast@yahoo.com, letting us know that you heard this, and we will send that. We'll tell you how to send that out to you. And so congratulations. You won a Myopux and a leopard claw. We're going to start doing another thing too. You're going to have to post, and we're trying to increase our social media. So you're going to post something in like a picture or something, or I don't know what it is. We'll figure it out. But thank you, Kim, and enjoy your Myopux. I hope it heals you and keeps you working out all the time, because that's what you should be doing: moving, working out, doing what you need to do. I talk about my dates a lot because part of the reason I do the show is as I think it's called a lead generator. I don't know what it is. But I do shows all the time because I'm hysterically funny. I don't know if you've seen me, but the chicks dig me. I am in New York right now, so you're not going to get to see me here. But by the time this comes out, I will be in Boston at Laugh Boston. These shows all sell out. Laugh Boston. Come see me there. It's in the Westin Hotel in the Seaport. It's the best club in Boston. Laugh Boston. Sold out shows. Get your tickets. I'm there this weekend, the 30th, 31st and 1st? Or no, there's only 30 days in January. No, there's 31. What am I thinking? So I'm there 30, 31, and 1. Then I head off to, I will be at Rick Bronson's House of Comedy in Vancouver on February 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then, where am I? I'm in Australia. That is the 19th, 21st, and 22nd. I will be at the Comics Lounge in Melbourne, Australia. From there, I go the 24th to the 8th to the Adelaide Fringe Festival, where I will be doing my own show, Dr. Google. Come see me there. And then when I get back, I'm headed to Comedy Showcase in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's in March. I'm putting dates together in a lot of places. Denver. I was just on the phone. Denver, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Scottsdale, Arizona. Everything is at eddieift.com. Dates are all going up today, so you'll see a lot of those. Come see me live. Come talk to me after the show. Come say hi. And come get some merch and hang out with me and get a sparkling water, because that's what I drink. Every once in a while I have a little cider beer because I'm a real man. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for all the support, keeping the show going. It's been amazing. It's been a great experience, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Now I want you to enjoy this episode with none other than Sage Hopkins. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wadcast podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Ift. Hey, how are you? That's Whitney. That's Sage Hopkins. You can't see them unless you go to the YouTube page, which is brand new. And on Instagram, I'm going to be posting clips. That's the whole thing. That's what we're going to do now on this show. We're going video, people. We're going video. I am here at San Jose State University doing an interview with someone who some of you might be familiar with, who's been lingering around the CrossFit world for a long time. He's comes highly recommended by Troy over there at the Myopucks industry. The Myopucks, you know, you probably all have a Myopucks by now. I push the Myopucks on everyone, and the leopard claw. And but anyway, you've also might have seen some of his videos. I watched one recently with you and Kelly and Brian McKenzie, and not only is he's the head swim team coach, female swim team coach at San Jose State, I believe, but you were also a pretty damn good athlete yourself.
A little bit back in the day, a long time ago.
I get the feeling, I've only met you briefly, that you're a pretty humble guy, but what were you, like 7-time All-American or something?
Something like that.
Something like that. You know he knows. I know these people that are like this are like, in his head, he's going, it was 8. But he's like, oh, you know. So what was your stroke?
I was a breaststroker.
That's the one where you need like crazy legs, huh?
Yeah. I was breaststroke and nothing else.
I got to say something. It's going to sound creepy, and I don't want it to sound creepy. But I had to walk in here. I'm not a creep. I'm not. I want to preface that. I'm a wife, children, everything. I walked in here today, and I had to walk past the water polo team, and, you know, girls all in their bathing suits. And I noticed like their build, and they all are very like legs, like look like if I got in a blocking fight with, like, they would knock me down.
They'd mess you up.
Yes. Like it was a build I've never seen. And I didn't realize, I've got one friend who's a water polo coach and is a water polo player. And I know from like the Navy SEALs and stuff that water polo players are bad at, but those women all looked like they would kick the shit out of me.
They would.
Yeah. So is that I know that's not your, but you don't work with them, I'm not sure, but is there like a special type of swimmer that becomes a water polo player? Is it a breaststroker, or is it?
There's a crossover there with the egg beater kick, but at this level, you're usually one or the other. I would guess a lot of the polo players swam a bit growing up, but generally to get to this level, they're generally going to focus in on just polo, probably the bulk of high school forward.
Even so, they were water polo players in high school. It wasn't a swimming thing.
And a lot of them probably before that.
Okay.
Especially some of the international players, they probably grew up with a water polo ball in their hand from day one.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that's what that was. I mean, I live very close to Pepperdine. And I know they have a really good team. And I see them. I go to this little burrito shop and they're always down there eating. But I didn't realize that. I thought that was something you kind of deviated into from from swimming.
I think back in the day, it was a lot more like that, maybe 60s, 70s, even 80s. And then, probably one of the realities is the increasing rental rates with facilities where coaches had to make a living, and you want to have your team paying bills year round to make that happen.
Right. But they did look like, every girl out there looked like she could squat like 350.
Yeah, they've got some strong women.
And then the other thing I want to mention, I've been out of college over 20 years now. Those bathing suits, that didn't go on when I was in college. It's what the hell is going on? I was like, should I be here right now? Like, can you guys put some clothes on? I felt awkward. I was like, I felt like I walked into the women's dressing room. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not, what's happening here? I remember, what was it? How many years ago when they got into you guys swimmers started wearing like the full
super suits. Yeah.
Didn't that get outlawed or something?
Yeah, thank goodness. They got out of control because there was a new suit coming out every few weeks, and it ended up being it didn't matter how good of a swimmer you were, more mattered did you have the newest suit. And there was people that were breaking some pretty special world records that I can remember in one case, the person apologized and he was embarrassed that I had no business breaking that world record. That was the suit, not me.
Wow. It was that bad?
Yeah.
And then does his record still hold?
I think all of the super suit records have now been broken. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because
but there was a worry that some of them never would be, because there was some very profound world records that were broken. But interestingly, most of the swimmers, when they couldn't race in those suits, they still felt like those times they put up were their times. And there was some mental barriers broken where I can get back to that time.
That's like, I've run 2 marathons, and one I ran drunk. And I ran that one faster. And I to this day, I feel like I cheated. It numbs the pain. It really does. It was incredible. It was on a bet.
Take your word.
It was on a bet. No, don't do it. My cardiologist friend told me after I did it, he's like, you could have died. He's like, you could have dehydrated and died. And I was like, no, I was drinking like every aid station I stop. I'd tell everybody I'm hammered. And it worked. And I just ran a race with a bunch of buddies at one of those like ultra marathons, and the one guy drank beers at every aid station. And I was like, why are you doing that? And he's like, it gives me some carbs and gives me a little buzz to get me to the next one. And I was like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I don't recommend it. Don't do that. Don't get drunk and run a marathon. I will never do that again. They have the beer mile though. Do you know the beer mile?
I've heard of stuff like that.
We've done it on this show. We've done it. I've done it at a CrossFit gym. I've done it. It's where you drink, chug a beer, run a mile, or run a quarter mile, chug a beer, run a quarter mile, chug a beer, run a quarter mile, chug a beer. Ooh. So what do you think the world record is?
I'm just thinking of the stomach ache on that last 400.
4 beers. It's bad after the second one. It's awful after the second
6 minutes maybe?
I was thinking it's like 5:20.
It's like 4:15.
That's really fast running and really fast beer chugging.
Yeah, it's insane. It's a Canadian dude, and he can chug a beer in 8 seconds, which is as fast as you can pour a beer. Because you got to do, I think, is it a can or is it a bottle? I forget if it's a can or a bottle. I think it's a can. And you get the real technical rules. And you can pour one out in 8 seconds. So that's just pouring it down your throat. And then he runs, think about it. He's running like a minute, a 60-second quarter.
That's impressive.
Faster than a 60-second quarter. So, how long do you think it took me? I think I did it in like 11 or 12 minutes or something. The second time I did it, I threw up everywhere. But what I'm getting to is, I think, being that this is a college and you have got a swim program, you do like the Beer 100, where you have your swimmers swim. And
I think the NCAA would frown on that.
and then you have to clean up the pool.
Yeah, we would pass on that one. I think there would be some profound response.
Okay, so let's get off me being an idiot. I want to know what you put in your drink over there.
It's electrolyte drink. I sweat a ton, and so just actually Brian McKenzie really helped me back when I was doing a lot more CrossFit. I would have a tough time making it through. Murph was my favorite WOD.
You're one of those weirdos.
I'm one of those weirdos, but I would cramp pretty regularly. And one time, I want to say I lost 5 or 6 pounds during it. I weighed myself before or after, and so I sweat more than anyone you know. Figuring out hydration thing is something that's really helped.
I know a guy, CrossFit owner, David Paradiso, doesn't sweat.
Wow.
Doesn't sweat at all. It's actually like a medical disorder, and it's bad, because sweating cools your body off. So that's just super high potassium, sodium.
It's that, whatever that brand is, Ultima, something like that.
I've just gotten really into this because we had Stan Efferton on the show who talked to me all about getting enough sodium in my diet and like crazy amounts. He was like, I want you to take 500 milligrams before a workout, 500 milligrams after a workout. Take a salt pill. And I was like, that sounds like so much. He goes, if you were working out harder, I'd tell you 1,000 before and after. He goes, but I'm looking at you. And so then going into this race, I had to figure out, how to get it. And, I did a race that we were like out for 19 hours and just constantly taking in enough. So I started taking sodium pills and just puking every time I'd take them. My stomach wouldn't handle it. So I ended up with, I use a product called Tailwind that I really like. But this doesn't, the stickers over the, I just wondered how much sodium and potassium. It doesn't even mention the sodium. Oh, there it is. 55. This is very low in sodium. It's all magnesium.
Yeah, a lot of magnesium.
Yeah, I take a thing called Calm at night, which is magnesium every night. That's the thing that every nutritionist I've had on this show says, like, we are all lacking magnesium. And they're like, it's the one thing you'll have trouble getting in your diet, and the one thing you like need to get in your body is magnesium. So that's pretty much the only thing.
Yeah, Brian got me on to doing a magnesium drink every night.
Yeah.
And so I take a real hot bath every night for years. And that's something that's really helped just with the hydration there, and then sleeping better, muscle soreness.
Are you always in water? Did you ever think
Quite a bit.
Do you ever think there's like something like you're kind of like amphibious?
At times, yeah.
So where'd you start? Where were you a swimmer like growing up?
I actually started swimming really late. I grew up in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Started up in the Lake Tahoe area, and then Santa Cruz, grew up more of a surfer, and then
where's your spot?
Back then, I grew up in Midtown, so Santa Cruz was, especially back then, pretty territorial. You had the east side guys, west side guys.
I was east side yesterday.
And the Midtowners, we were a little bit welcome at each, and so Stockton Avenue in the summer, and usually the Point or the River Mouth in the winter.
I surfed, is it Sewers?
Yep.
Sewers, and then the other day I surfed 26.
Yeah. Two of my favorite places.
Terrifying. It was 10 foot. Pat Barber.
Oh, yeah.
Pat Barber. Do you know Pat Barber?
Yeah.
Pat Barber took me out and played this. He sandbagged me completely. He's like, yeah, I'm not a really good surfer. And I looked out and I go, this is the biggest it ever gets in Southern California, ever. This is like hurricane swell. And he's like, yeah, it's Santa Cruz. And I'm like, okay, if I get out there, do you have a helicopter to get me back in? And I just sat out there and just every wave I paddled for, I was like, I'm not going down that. And I would just pull off of it. I'm like, I do not want to be on the bottom of the ocean right now. And then I got caught on the inside and just got pummeled.
Yeah.
For like I swear it was one of those like 12 wave sets that just wasn't ending. And I kept going, this is God. God hates me. Like God just went, ha, got you finally.
Yeah, both those places are no joke.
Yeah. Okay, see? And he said on my Instagram, it says like shitty surfer. Like I have that as my title.
Thrown out there.
And everybody likes that I think people think it's funny to put me in bad situations. And so you grew up surfing there. Tahoe, why Tahoe? My
mom was a pro skier.
Oh, so you got the genes. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So was there Tahoe probably till I think we moved to Santa Cruz in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And then
She just got sick of the mountain?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was her...
She was speed skiing. So the ones that just basically vault down the cliff.
So she was a psychopath.
Yeah.
What was her top speed? That's what they go for, right?
I think, top speed. She was in the first group of women that did it. And I want to say she hit in the high 90s, 98, 99 miles an hour.
The men are going...
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I remember Stevie McKinney, who was part of kind of that tribe up there, was the world record holder back then. And I want to say he was 120s, 130s.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And that's like almost like terminal velocity.
Yeah, I want to say he broke terminal velocity eventually. I think some of those guys have. Where
It's
they've
so
been able to
weird.
accelerate
I met a guy in Australia who was like the least likely to be a speed skier. He was a British guy, and it was like almost like Eddie the Eagle. And the guy, I grew up skiing my whole life, and I went skiing with the guy, and he can't ski. Like, he's not a good skier. He's a good speed skier.
Mm-hmm.
It was, he just got into this thing and learned how to put these things on and get in a really good tuck and had the balls that no one else has. But where would she train in Tahoe for that?
I think a lot of the Palisades up in Squaw Valley, just hucking themselves down those chutes.
Yeah.
And then
Mom's crazy.
The year that she really went after it, I'd lived with my grandparents and my dad in San Francisco, and I want to say she was training somewhere in Colorado.
Okay.
And basically just going down cornices.
Wow. Yeah. Just so scary. Nobody understands how steep that is and how scary it is. And oh my God. So, so you moved to Santa Cruz. When did you start swimming?
Not until the end of freshman year of high school.
That's not that late, but
swimming
is a sport.
Late. Yeah.
I got thrown into swimming at like 5 years old or something. I was on a swim team, as soon as I can remember, like country club swimming.
Yeah.
And it was so serious. Like I remember like guys in like the shower shaving their legs, and I was like, this is way too hardcore for me. I remember one kid shaving his head completely. I'm like, what's happening here? We're 6.
It's a hardcore country club.
Yeah, I mean, we won every year the like country club championships, and it's so funny. My sister still lives there, and my niece is on that team, and she's on a swim club, and they take it really, really seriously still. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you guys are insane. Calm down. But
so I had a big learning curve. I didn't know how to do starts, flip turns, didn't know how to swim butterfly. So there was a lot of learning the first couple of years.
Does anyone know how to swim butterfly? It's the hardest thing in the world.
It's her favorite.
How do you do that? Whitney sitting here with us, assistant coach here. And butterfly, to me, I always say that would be the CrossFitter event, because it just looks like something like a kind of like a pull up or a snatch. It's awful. And there's a kip in there almost. But like to do it, I'm a decent swimmer, not butterfly. If you put me in the ocean, like I'd say 100 yards from shore, and said, we're leaving you here. You can only get in if you butterfly in. I'd be at the bottom of the ocean dead. You'd find me. It's so hard. I find it such a hard. Are you known in swimming as like the most badass like swimmers because that stroke is so hard? No,
I think that it's more of how good you are within your stroke. I mean, each stroke kind of has maybe its personality to a degree. And I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of respect for a 200 butterflyer, but I don't know if it's markedly more than a really good sprinter.
So in track, we looked at kind of the 400 hurdles, 800 runners as the psychopaths. Mm-hmm. Obviously like a mile, but those guys train, like when you go 800 or 400 hurdles, it's like, hey, you're going to go as hard as you possibly can in like almost a sprint mode, and at a distance where lactic acid and everything's going to build up, and you're going to see Jesus. And so those were the psychos. I would assume.
I'd say 400 IM.
400, really?
Yeah, which is her, so she's the psycho. That was her best event.
Yeah, you like the 400. Did you swim here?
I did swim here.
Oh yeah, you told me you were at Stockton, and
but she had Olympic trials 400 IM and.
Oh wow! Congratulations. I've had on the show Caroline Burkle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She's a friend of the show. She's I have her send Instagrams to my little niece who's a swimmer, and she's like, "Oh my God, you know Olympians." But yeah, she was great. And I made the mistake once of I'm just telling you all my little swim stories. I went surfing in Australia one time after one of my shows. You know, and then we'll get to you. I could have just done this in my hotel room, just talked about myself the whole time. I'm in Australia. I do a show, and I said, "Hey, I'm in Brisbane." I go, "I want to go surfing on the Gold Coast. I want to surf, like snapper or something." Or I didn't say snapper. I said, "I want to surf somewhere here on the Gold Coast," which is like one of the best places to surf in the world. After the show, a couple guys come up to me. And they're like, "Hey, we're going tomorrow. You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "We'll pick you up. We'll take you." I'm like, "Awesome." I didn't know there was a hurricane swell. I had no idea. And they take me to Snapper Creek, the Superbank, which is one of the most famous waves in the world, which is it's over a mile long. It's so long. It's one giant point because they pump sand there. And so the guy said to me, he goes, "Listen, there's a really strong current today." He said, "Really strong." He goes, "Are you a good swimmer?" And I go, "Dude, I used to be an ocean lifeguard in New Jersey." And the guy goes, he's like, "Okay." I go, "Are you a good swimmer?" Because he was like a kind of a pretty boy guy. And he goes, "I swam in the Olympics."
He's decent.
And I go, "Oh." I go, "Really? Which Olympics?" He goes, "Atlanta." And I go, "What event?" He's like, "Breaststroke." And his name was Jade Winter. And I go, "Oh, so you're a pretty good swimmer." And he goes, "Yeah, this is a tough current. It's really tough." He goes, "It just will sweep you down the beach." He goes, "We're going up here." He goes, "See Pizza Hut down there, like down the beach, like a mile?" He goes, "See that building with the Pizza Huts on?" He goes, "If you get there, get out of the water." He goes, "Get out." And he goes, "Start walking back." And I go, "I heard there's taxis there and you can just take a taxi back." And he's like, yeah, whatever. So he goes in, and I just see him get swept away. And I'm like, "Oh no, what's going to happen to me?" So I get in, I start paddling. I'm just trying to get to the outside of the wave because it's on a point. And I'm paddling, I'm duck diving. And I'm like, and then I was like, I guess I'm just going to get a pizza. I ended up at Pizza Hut. I walked all the way back, got back in, all the way back down to Pizza Hut before I ever even caught it. 2 times. Did not catch a wave, got swept all the way down. And he goes, "Yeah, we were watching you. We were laughing. It was pretty funny." He goes, How's that New Jersey lifeguarding out here in Australia?"
Yeah, those currents are no joke. I just remembered I lived on the North Shore of Oahu for a year, and we were checking the surf out. The wind wasn't quite the right direction for sunset, and it was a big day. And we lived in Turtle Bay, which is right next to a place called Cavella Bay.
Yep.
And it was this mystic place that we'd always heard about, and we checked it out. The winds were perfect. It looked amazing, but no one was out. We couldn't really tell how big it was. And we paddled out, and it's an outside open ocean reef out there, and we got caught inside by just a massive set. And by the time, it finished cleaning us up, we were probably a half a mile moved from where we started.
Did you start out at Turtle Bay?
No, we walked around, and I think we jumped off of the rock kind of near that pillbox.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're talking about. They teach over there a lot. They when there's no waves, there's waves there that take the beginners out. Yeah. And I have never seen that, but that picks up right there.
Yeah, it was terrifying. Ooh. Yeah, out on it was one of those moments when you're out there and you're just hoping you make it back in.
Oh, I've had that.
Because it's there's something goes wrong out there, no one's coming to get you.
It's very, very scary. And although there are some weird weird Hawaiians that'll be like, "Bro, let's go get them." Like they're weird. They're all like that. I've spent a lot of time at Turtle Bay. I used to kind of have a residency where I'd do a show 3 times a year at Turtle Bay at Surfer Bar. And so I'd go over there and I get to know a lot of the guys. And again, they're like, "Hey, let's go surf." And I'm like, that is 20 foot high and I am not getting in there. And they're like, "Oh, we'll take you to a smaller part of it." And you're like, "Oh, 15 foot is not that."
You're not helping.
Oh, I've just learned everyone else in life, when they say something, cut it in half.
Mm-hmm.
With surfers that are good, take what they tell you and then double it.
Especially in Hawaii.
Yeah, because they lie. Oh, especially, yeah.
Yeah.
But so did you know you were good? Like you just were like, I'll swim. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I mean, I think losing your board and trying to swim through that would have been.
But I mean, when you got into high school and you were like, I'm going to be a swimmer, was it just like when I ran track, it was like I failed at everything. So I was like, oh, we'll try track. We'll see if we fail at that.
I think it was an affinity for water. I'd missed surfing so much and had always grown up in the water. And swimming we were in Grass Valley, California, pretty far from the ocean.
Okay.
So it was that and skateboarding. There was a guy, John Cardiel. I don't know how much you follow skateboarding.
I loved skateboarding.
But Cardiel moved up there, right up from Half Moon Bay, right about the same time I did. And so we kind of had that angst over relocating to someplace we really didn't want to live.
Yeah.
And so it was either skating with Cardiel or swimming. And then probably end of junior year of high school was when I made the decision to really pursue swimming at a little bit higher of a level. And at that point started driving down to the Sacramento area, swimming under one of the Olympic coaches.
Okay. So were you already getting some pretty fast times
No, I was horrible. I mean, the reality of it was there was 3 of us. 2 of them were pretty good.
Yeah.
And they needed me to be part of the carpool. And so the coach... I think my coach just kind of he had to, took me. And it was one of those things I just put my head down and worked my ass off.
That's great.
And started getting a little bit better.
That's great. And what was your event in breaststroke?
100 and 200, probably better at the 200 than the 100.
My knees would be like, if you told me to go do a 200 breaststroke, I'm just like, oh, my knees would be like just falling off right now. Although I think when I did my lifeguard test, I did a lot of breaststroke. Let's just say the first test, I failed the first test. Second test, I did well in. But I didn't do well in the swim. The first time I took my lifeguard test, I just completely failed at this one town. And because the run was like, I'm a sprinter, the run was an 800 and maybe even a little more, maybe like a 1200. And it was, part of it was in the water. You had to like go out the chest and back out. And I was in first place for a while. And then I was in last. But then I didn't want to even do the next test. And then I went to the next test and they said, we're just going to take the culmination of like swim and run. Like we have 80 guys trying out. We're taking 18 people. Go. And we had swimmers like Chris Kennedy, who was a national champion swimmer from Syracuse. We had, I think he was a breaststroker too. We had all these guys like top water polo play. It's, right near Philadelphia. So you get all the rowers from Penn, runners from Villanova, and a lot of top athletes. And I go out in the swim, and it was a mile swim, and I get in, and I think I think I was out of like 81 tryouts. I think I was 80th, and the 81st guy climbed in the boat at the halfway point. So they were just like yelling at me. They're like, come on, we got to end this thing. So I'm on my back shooting water out of my mouth. So then I was just going to go home because I'm like, even if I win the run, I'm still like 40th. And they had me, the run was individual, so it was timed. So I didn't even know. It was a sprint, like 200 meters, then out to a guy in the water, halfway, chest high. And they told me to come back for the interview. And they're like, so you almost got last. And they're like, but you won the run, like significantly. They're like, what's going on? Like, why? And I did that line from Saturday Night Live where the synchronized swimmers, and I go, I'm not a particularly strong swimmer. And they're like, this is lifeguarding. Like, you have to swim. And I was like, oh. And they're like, why are you so fast? And I'm like, oh, I run track at Pitt. And they were like, oh. And they brought a couple guys down, and they brought their top surf dasher down and had me race them. And that when they saw I could do that, they were like, oh, we're good. So they're like, I thought, okay, I'm on the patrol. This is it. The next day, they just took me out in a boat, like way out into the ocean, threw me out, and were like, swim, learn to swim. And that's how I learned. So I like your story. I had to learn to swim by death You were the carpool guy.
Yeah,
I
and
love
I
that.
was terrified of my
You
coach.
became All-American because you're afraid of your coach, and they needed you for the carpool. I have lately been supplementing a lot. I don't usually supplement, but I've been so busy. I've been traveling. I always kind of believed you use, try to get food as all your, your source of all the things you need. But it's impossible. Tell me where you're going to get enough magnesium, huh? And good luck with your potassium. And if you're feeling not well, I take some wellness shots, or I've been doing some elderberry. I've done the Ben Greenfield recommendations for sickness. I had a tiny little cold, and I nailed it. I swear to God, I got rid of it by taking some zinc, some elderberry, some liposomal vitamin C, and I also take magnesium. And I'm starting to use protein supplements and maybe some creatine. Trying to bulk up. And one of the things that's very important to me is that all of these things, like I just said, a liposomal vitamin C. Well, when I'm looking for a ingredient, there's a lot of ingredients I don't want in my supplements, but there's one ingredient I want to see in all my supplements, and that is estrogen. That's spelled ASTRAGIN. So when you go to buy any kind of supplement, make sure it has estrogen in it, okay? Make sure it has it. If it doesn't, contact the company that makes your supplement and say, why aren't you using estrogen? Because it's clinically proven to help absorption. Clinically, there's study after study that shows it promotes absorption, intestinal wall regeneration, microbiota population, and immune functions. Anybody that's had any gut problems knows how important this is. So you want to increase the absorption of peptides, amino acids, fatty acid, vitamins, phytonutrients by upregulating the absorption. I'm not going to get into all the science of it. Just know you're probably taking one of those as a supplement, even if it's just a vitamin. You're taking a multivitamin. You want to make sure it's got estrogen in it. You want to repair ulcerated and damaged intestinal walls, reduce intestinal mucosa, submucosa, and inflammation. Estrogen is shown to do that. There's so much science behind this. If you want to nerd out and talk to me, I can send you some of this stuff. It's just, you want to make sure it happens because it's doing this. It's absorbing the bioavailability of all these things. Your amino acids, your peptides, your fatty acids, your vitamins, your phytonutrients. So why waste money? Why are you going to waste money? You want this stuff. You want it in you. You want it absorbed quicker, easier, better. Make sure it's got estrogen. Check it out. You don't have it in your stuff, contact your company or find a company that has it. I am excited to talk to you about something right now. You guys all think I'm a nutrition geek. Well, I found something to geek out even more than I ever have before, and it's changing the way I look physically, the way I feel physically, and I'm not just blowing smoke right now. I'm serious. I feel awesome right now, and there's a couple reasons. One is I'm getting more protein. Two is I've found a way to balance my diet more because I didn't realize the mistakes I was making. I was eating a lot of nuts, a lot of fat, tons of bacon, and I thought I wasn't ketogenic. I was eating this diet of just lots of fat, lots and lots of protein, not enough, but I thought I was getting enough. And then some good carbs and some bad ones when I'm crazy. But basically, by using this app called MacroStacks, MacroStax, MacroStacks, I was able to check my macros. And when we're talking macros, we're talking fat, carbs, protein. And I was very easily able to go onto the site, check my macros, and devise a plan on MacroStacks, which said, so I needed to gain weight after my run. I was like, I need to gain weight. I need to gain muscle. And I plugged in all of my data, and it came out with a plan for me. And it was basically my nutrition coach telling me what I need to eat, how much I need to eat daily. And I didn't realize that I was my proportions were all wrong. I was eating way too much fat, not enough carbs, and not enough protein. So I switched it up, for me, it's made me a lot healthier, a lot happier, a lot stronger, I think. And it just tweaked all the things that were wrong in my diet. And it's great because you go to their app and you're able to first of all, they've got access to a nutrition coach. So you can talk to the nutrition coach. They've got a place to track everything. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to track everything you're eating. And you think this might be labor intensive, but it's not. It's kind of fun in the beginning. You put them in and you don't realize how much you eat the same things over and over. So it's got a kind of a shorthand where, once you've put something in, it's in there always, and you just go straight to it and you start putting in, and you start getting an idea too pretty quickly of, wow, like I need to eat more of this, and you just start feeling like, well, I need 4 meals a day, or I need 3 big meals, 3 supplements of protein or whatever, protein shakes. It's all going to depend on what you're looking for, because they individually tailor this to whatever you want. If you want to lose weight, you want to gain weight, you want to gain muscle, it's all there. And it's scientifically proven. And it's got a flexible plan that you're going to get the results that you want, and you're not going to feel deprived. So you need recipes. They're there. They've got 800,000 foods for easy tracking. That's what their database, like 800,000 foods are in here. So if you eat it, it's probably in there. I mean, there have been some random things I've had, and I just scanned the barcode. And I'm like, well, they've got it. It's in there. Really random stuff. And like I said, access to nutrition coach, recipes for anyone. If you're a beginner, you're expert, you can follow along with these. And the recipes also, they design them that if you want to do like meal prep, or you've got like a big family and you want to feed them, they show you how to do that. And because I love it and they love me and we love you, we're going to give you 25% off your Macro Stacks subscription. That was hard to say. Macro Stacks subscription. Macro Stacks subscription. I said it 3 times. Macrostacks.com. Go in there, enter Wadcast. You'll get 25% off. Okay. It's an app, but it's not an app you get in the web store. I mean, in like the app store. You got to go to their website, and then you can download it from there, and you save it, and then it can be on your phone, and you just, boom, I click it just like every other app. I get it all the time. So sign up, all right? Sign up now for 25% off your Macro Stacks subscription. That's MACROSTAX subscription. Visit macrostacks.com. 25% off. Enter the code WADCAST. Did the other guys get as good as you?
Neither of the other 2 made it through college swimming. One of them, I think, swam for a year, and there was maybe some injuries or something. And I don't think the other guy, I think he stopped swimming at the end of high school.
And did you love it? Because I often wonder, swimmers, you're weird people.
I did. I truly did. I loved the team aspect of it. Was probably my favorite thing. Just that, having that tribe of people, you're all pursuing the same thing, and that was my favorite.
Are you also one of these guys you like to work out?
Yeah.
You said you like.
It depends on what it is. Yeah, Murph was my favorite. I haven't CrossFitted in years.
What's your best Murph time?
With the vest, I think I did 39 minutes.
That's really impressive.
I don't know. I look at some of these guys. I remember watching a guy do 3 in a row in like an hour and a half or something, and I felt pretty bad.
Those are weirdos. But you're not a large guy. Like, so Murph, if you're smaller, you can crush it without the vest. When you put the vest on, it starts to get a
game changer.
It's a real game. It changes the whole stimulus.
Yeah.
And I know how to cheat it really well. Let me tell you the secret. With the vest, you put all the weights up in the chest. So none on the back. You put them on the chest. So when you do your push-ups, you're doing like 2-inch push-ups. It's the only way I got through it.
Where were you a few years ago?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I got Bell's palsy from Murph.
Really?
I did Murph after fasting for like 18 hours.
Ooh.
And I was just dumb. I just had no electrolytes. I had nothing in. I compromised my immune system and just crashed. And then like woke up the next day with my face paralyzed. I was like, what the hell is wrong with my wife was like, what the hell's wrong with your face? And I was like, you don't look so good in the morning either. But so I called, I forget who I called. I think I called Kelly.
Yeah.
Right away. And Kelly was like, "You're an idiot." He's like, "What are you doing? Why are you always redlining everything in your life?" He's like, "You're going to really crash one of these days." He's like, "Stop." And so, why did you quit doing CrossFit?
I had a buddy that owned CrossFit Moxie.
Where's that?
Well, I guess it still is about a mile and a half south of here. Mm-hmm. And it was Chris Mr. Moore. He owned it, and he ended up selling the gym. And I had helped kind of get it set up. Was one of their first coaches, so I had a free membership.
Yeah.
And right about lost the membership. Wasn't really enjoying it as much as I had. And actually, I mean, at that point, probably stepped out of CrossFit or any type of exercise for a couple of years. Got really out of shape, and then realized maybe 3 years ago I gotta start making some changes, and started doing jiu-jitsu at that point.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah, we've got Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu with Matt Darcy, and Dave Camarillo is just about a mile away also. So that's the last 3 years been my main passion.
Usually what I find is when people leave CrossFit for something else, they either leave it to quit, but if they leave for something else, it's always jiu-jitsu. They're like, "I am the fittest man. Now I want to crush people. I want to use my fitness to learn how to kill people."
Yeah. So then Whitney and I started Team Swole, we call it, in the fall, and we go into the weight. Whitney's works out a lot, but I realized I need to start lifting some weights again. I've got a hypermobility genetic thing where I've got to, just for joint safety, needed to start lifting again. Right. And so twice a week we'd go in there and just do some simple, we usually had like a deadlift day, a squat day, and then adding in a lot of accessory movements and some more kind of controlled either Metcon or EMOM type of stuff. A lot of it's just similar programming that I'm doing for the power speed endurance folks.
Are your hypermobility, is that was that helping you in swimming or hurting you?
It depended. It's a condition called Ehlers-Danlos, which is a defect in the way collagen's structured. Mm-hmm. And so it causes, there's a lot of different types of it. I've got the type that lends itself to athleticism. Mm-hmm. And so there's range of motion issues in terms of I can get places that maybe other people can't.
Like Kelly Slater. Kelly Slater has that in his back.
Yeah. Definitely. But then also there's long-term implications of putting joints in places that they really shouldn't be levering from.
Sure.
So that's where one of the things before I originally got into CrossFit, I could feel my hips subluxing a little bit, just moving around, walking. They were that loose, and just from squatting, tightened everything back up.
Sure. You're the opposite of me. Like, you don't need to stretch at all. I need to stretch like 12 hours a day.
But then there's some, it masks a lot of mobility issues too, because just because I can put my arm someplace, I could be doing that off of ligaments, tendons moving rather than the muscles being able to really exhibit a full range of motion.
How did you find out you had this?
So I have an aunt that my whole dad's side of the family's from Peru.
Okay.
And they moved to the U.S.
You do not look Peruvian. My brother-in-law is Peruvian.
Really?
Yeah, and you do not look Peruvian at all.
Yeah, on that side of the family, I don't fit in with the family photos. It's one of those genetic type of things. Yeah. But yeah, on my father's side, I'm first generation to have English as a first language.
Wow.
And so
what's the mother's side?
German and Irish.
Yeah, okay. Because my brother-in-law's Irish and Peruvian, and you two would look like you're from two different worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had one aunt who had a much worse type of Ehlers-Danlos, and they had to move to the U.S. I think they actually sent her to Florida on her own for medical care at some point, and then eventually the whole family moved up here to get her better treatment, better care.
So it's completely genetic and it gets handed down.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So both of I've got a daughter and a son, and they both have it.
Oh,
and so it's one of those things that now, knowing we've got to look out for it right away. My daughter was put into a brace within minutes of being born that she was in for probably 2 years. Oh, and then my son was put in a brace within probably weeks of being born that he was in for probably a year and a half.
And when you say brace, like what kind of brace?
I'm blanking on the name of it, but it essentially holds heels in towards the butt, knees out kind of in a frog position. Uh-huh. And what happens is
I think I've seen this.
Yeah. And the part of the hip socket needing to develop, one of the things that triggers that is the femur being up in the socket, and then it develops around. And if there's too much motion in the womb, the femur's not really in there, so the hip socket doesn't develop. And so holding everything in there, it just helps the hip socket to develop when they're really young infants.
Do they have the type that'll lend to athleticism also?
It looks like it. The ones that are a little bit more scary, there can be problems with aneurysms because just the structure in the arteries can be too loose, and you can have issues there. Or if you can think back to kind of those old school circus, the rubber man that used to be able to pull their cheek out, that's a form of it where there's no elasticity, so you can pull skin.
When we had our first child, we went to the genetic testing where they sit and they read down to you the different disorders and things, the diseases, everything that genetically that your child could have based on, my wife's and my own genetics. And I remember the doctor reading them, and maybe about a third of the way through, I was like, why have we done this? Why are we having a child? Like, this is terrible. And I remember the doctor saying he goes, and then there's maple syrup disease. And I went, all right, do you think I'm not paying attention? Because I heard you. You just said maple syrup disease. And he's like, it's a real disease. And I was like, all right, I know I'm a comedian. It's not funny. And he's like, no, it's really, it's called maple syrup disease. And I said, what is it? And he goes, well, it's a disorder where your infant's urine will smell like maple syrup.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, okay, so tell me why this is bad. And he's like, it's really bad. And I was like, okay, well, if I have to pick one of these, I mean, there's some pretty bad shit on here. I think I'm going with maple syrup.
Maple syrup.
I go because I want to be able to when I'm changing a diaper, be like, pancakes. And but it's terrifying. And so, what is it, like 50% chance that one of the kids would have it based on?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know tends to run more in females than males, and tends to be a little bit more pervasive in terms of the implications.
So do you avoid stretching at all?
Pretty much. I mean, it's more mobilizing.
I wish I had that.
I mean, there's some things though, like I have a really tight hamstrings, and I can remember being in college, and the trainers, I was always like the freak show. I go into the training room, and the trainers doing stretches would be like, hey, everybody come over and we can throw his leg all the way over.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember saying to the trainers, I'm not stretching. I can just feel my pelvis shifting around. I'm not feeling that in my hamstring. And the trainers would be like, no, you're fine. And it was actually
back when they knew a lot.
Yeah. From working with Kelly, started realizing like, no, my tissue in my hamstring is a disaster because things aren't moving in the right way. And so there's things like that. So
you still work on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do a lot of tissue mobilization.
What do you do? Just grind on the
Gorgeous ball, supernovas. We just got a Theragun. That's our new favorite thing.
Oh, the best, Dr. Jason.
Yeah.
I've had him on the show twice, and I'm the biggest fan of that thing. And I've talked to some experts who say stuff like, well, there's not a lot of data. There's not a lot of clinical evidence. And I go, I don't need clinical evidence. I know that I'll be having weird pains in my wrist, and I'll just start hammering it. And I go, and then my wrist is mobile and the pain is gone. Whatever it does, it moves tissue, it moves blood around, it works.
Yeah.
And I've tried all the other ones too, the Hypervolt and all the others, and some of them are pretty good, but none of them match the Theragun. The Theragun is still, people are always like, why is it called? I have this guy, Hunter McIntyre, on the show all the time, and he always is like, they're all the same. Why would you pay $700 for a Theragun? I'm like, okay, you go use yours. I'll drive my Bentley. You can get in your Kia. It really makes a difference. And mine's in my car right now. It goes everywhere with me.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah,
but we've got, between Kelly, Jill Miller, the leopard claw, we've got all sorts of tools, and I use them all.
Yeah, people just
I think this whole drawer is full of mobility stuff.
So what was the thing I walked past out here? Is that secret? Like no one's supposed to know?
You were probably coming in the tail end of a breathing protocol we were doing. The power towers.
Yes.
So you can use them. I mean, generally you're going to be working on either sheer power or some sort of a power endurance.
Are you wearing a harness and then swimming?
Correct. Yeah, okay. You can either do a belt around it or there's a harness that I think works a little bit better that can go around the shoulders. And they're just pulling a load down the pool. There's a pulley system kind of similar to like a Nautilus machine, and they're able to swim a full lap in the pool.
It used to be just bungee cords that people would swim with. Yeah.
Yeah, and those have a lot of value, but obviously the resistance changes from none to a maximal point, whereas this is a constant load.
Okay. So it's like why you'd put chains on when you're doing a squat or something.
Exactly.
Similar thing. But for someone that can't afford to go out and buy a power tower.
You got bungee cord.
For people that didn't see it, they basically have cranes out here that they're hooking people up to. So you just put on like a swim harness and a bungee cord.
Exactly. And there's big, they look like a big trash can that you can put different amounts of water in or weights. To have a load, and we've got markings on them on the inside so we can know how much water to load it with.
Oh, that's interesting. That looks like a lot of fun. We did, in high school, I did a lot of the surgical tubing training, and they just bought surgical tubing from the hospital.
Yeah.
And just tied it around us, and those would snap all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
brutal.
I one time saw at football practice it snap on a guy, and he was the holder. Like we'd put one around one guy's waist, one around the other. And I saw it come back and hit him and he was red from his knees to his chest. And I took one home with me, and I would practice with it a lot. I would tie it to a tree and then just run on it. And one day I took my little neighbor, John Epstein, and, not one day, almost every day I would put him in it and I would run as far as I could. And then I would have him run. And he would take 2 steps, and then he was like an airplane, just flying through the sky, and he would hit the dirt. And so one day I remember putting it on him, and I would start running, and when I would get far enough, he'd start running. Cause he was like, I don't want this to get too stretched out because then I'm going to hit the dirt. So I remember one day going, don't move till I tell you you can. And let's just say I bullied John a little bit, but there's a silver lining. He grew up to take steroids and get huge and beat the But so I said, you hold on to this tree and wait till I get all the way to the other end of the field to that tree. Don't let go until I get to that tree. I stretched this thing till it looked like dental floss. and then I turned around and I go. And I see him take one step and just fly through the air and land. And he's like, oh, and he's lying there. And I realize it's still so stretched that it could snap at any second. And I go to him, crawl to me slowly, crawl to me. And I turn around and I look back and I just see him. It wasn't a harness. We just had it tied around. I just see him taking it off his legs. And it was slow motion. I went, no. And I remember this so vividly, watching it wave through the air as a giant rubber. You can't run away from it. It's coming wherever it's attached to you. And it's like, and it just went whack. And it hit me so hard, it knocked the wind out of me. And it put welts on my calf, my thigh, my side, my shoulder. And I was like, I might have cried. Okay, I cried. And I get up and I'm on the ground, and I see him running home as fast as he can, just giggling and cheering. And to this day, every time I see him, he's like, remember when I whacked you with that rubber band? But I want to start using one of those in a pool. I want to do bungee when I have a small pool, just almost tread water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause
they're a lot safer now. They have a kind of a nylon string inside of it. So if it breaks, it doesn't go anywhere. I remember years ago, I was coaching and had one break, and I had pants on, and I had welts that in some places are actually bleeding through my pants from it hitting me.
Oh, so you know how I felt.
Yeah.
It was brutal. John Epstein. You little fucker. He's huge now, by the way. But, so when you got into CrossFit and everybody, you're you become like enamored of it. You started using some of it here, right?
Yeah. The team did CrossFit for years as our strength and conditioning, probably through 2014 or 15, and just, changing dynamics in the weight room and strength coaches. You came to a realization you can't force a strength coach to do something they don't believe in. It's not going to work. And I think there's a lot of very, very good things.
So you hand your swimmers off to a strength coach to do dry land?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're just too much time with me.
Right.
Otherwise, and and they stop listening. But one of the dangers.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. Is your strength coach, does he handle all the sports? Or, I mean, like when I was at Pitt, it was everything except for football, basically.
Ours does football and maybe baseball and swimming. He has one other sport he does. And football's a huge time demand. So usually the guys that have football just do 2 other sports, or maybe if you don't have football, you may have 4 or 5 sports.
Okay. That would be pretty tough to, because you're such different disciplines where you're going, okay, football, we need you complete power, and this is, muscle stamina probably that you're focusing on with your swimmers.
Well, GPP work, just strengthen them head to toe.
Yeah.
We have a really good strength coach right now, and I basically just say I want them to be squatting, deadlifting. They need to be really competent at pull-ups.
I think pull-ups.
Overhead stability is a huge thing.
Do you worry about shoulders with any kind of injuries in the weight room? And then,
shoulders are always a concern for swimming, and we do a lot of overhead stability. And then every single session, they're carrying kettlebells, dumbbells overhead, and just developing more competence there.
Do you do like Turkish get-ups and?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, do you use crossover symmetry at all with them?
No, they do some similar exercises with TRX bands in there and with just regular stretchy bands. But
I wouldn't know this, but do swimmers have strong rotator cuffs from swimming, or are they weak just like everybody else because we just work on our, the muscle and not the inside?
There tends to be massive internal rotation issues in terms of kind of the typical swimmer's posture is going to be hunched over like that. And so we do every single practice. They're in the pool for maybe 10 minutes and then they're out doing internal rotation mobility, something that Kelly set us up with years ago that's been a game changer in terms of shoulder health. And then everything with them is just trying to get the posture to open up. So they're doing a lot of scap, trap type of work just to try to rebalance things.
I mean, that sounds really important for swimming, but that's just important for everyday life.
Yeah.
That's everyone. But it's just so funny how everything is functional.
Yeah.
Like the stuff we should be doing everyday life is also really good for swimming.
And especially now with, text neck and all of the sitting, especially hunched over a phone, computer. Yeah, I keep pulling my shoulders back.
I do too. As you're talking about it, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned that GPTV episode with Kelly and Brian and myself, and I thought I had pretty good posture, and the interview was set up, and I'm right between the two of them, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Those
I'm
two
horrid.
Are like this at all times, and you're like, why are you going to make me look bad? Yeah, and people always give me shit about my posture, and I'm like, I don't have a job. I don't sit at a desk all day long. So when I want to slump, it's okay because it's for like 10 minutes. The rest of my day, I'm standing and doing stuff, and I work out a lot. Don't give me crap. But I have text neck right now, really. I mean, I get a little in the top of the thoracic, and it causes all kinds of issues. And it's any kind of shoulder problem I've had. It's everything goes back to, hey, you got to, loosen your traps, tighten your scap, and, do some, loosen up your pecs. And I mean, it's everybody. It's every time I have a friend go, I have, and I'm like, here's the protocol. Or they, or they have the lower back and it's like, okay, your pelvic tilt or your tight hamstrings. And they're like, I don't know why I have a back problem. I'm like, I do. You sit at a desk all day long unless you're Kelly Stratton, you stand all day long.
And he's got the stool.
Yeah. Does he have one of those seats that's like a horse?
I haven't seen that. They just have those bar stools in that back area where the computers are. And then, or they got the standing desks where they got all the stuff to keep their feet.
My manager at his office, they have these stools that are like, you feel like you're sitting in a saddle, kind of like there's a hump in the front and your legs go off to the side. There's no back. And you just find yourself, it's very comfortable and you find yourself sitting in perfect posture. You just kind of have to. and I got to find out what it is because I need to get one. It's great.
Yeah.
It's really, really comfortable, and you don't, there's, if you try to sit back, you're on the floor. So, look, I'm now trying to have good posture. Here I go. I am not. You're slumped. But everybody, surfing gives you internal rotation.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say, it's really good to have internally rotated shoulders for this, but it just naturally happens in shoulders or in surfing. That paddle, I've gotten all kinds of elbow issues.
Yeah.
From paddling with internally rotated shoulders and, always being in flexion. And I didn't realize, I think it was Brian McKenzie who told me, he's like, this is flexion when you're paddling under your board and you're coming under. He's like, where's your hand right now? He's like, you using your extensors? I'm like, oh no. And he's like, yeah, why do you think you have, do swimmers get, like tennis elbow? Or,
yeah.
Is that
shoulders, elbows are probably our two most common.
Yeah, knees, but
Yeah.
I just wish there were more. I know there are exercises for, the extensors, but it just seems like they're just not predominant, and there's not a lot. Pat Barber and I had an argument about this. He's like, what are you talking about? There's tons of stuff for extensors. I'm like, no, there isn't. And he's like, when you're this, when you're that, what push-ups? He's like, push-ups, you're totally using your extensors. I'm like, I do a lot of push-ups. I have horrible tennis elbow. So I didn't know that swimmers get it.
Yeah.
Swimmers just always look like they're so healthy and like life is easy. They do. They always have been. Like when I was in high school, the swimmers always just look like, you get the big coats, you just everything looks, it just looked like the sport.
Life's easy in the big coat.
Yeah. But I mean, everybody knows you have it. You work out really hard. Like I look at swim workouts. I've trained for some triathlons and my friend gives me the workouts and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do about 1/10 of this. Like, what's wrong with you people? But it is like you're pretty badass.
Yeah, they definitely get after it.
Give me an average day, the kind of, you guys talking cryptically. So let's break it down to like mileage. How many miles will they swim in a practice? Like 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles?
So they're usually most commonly in the pool for about 2 hours. Some days are a little bit shorter. Wow. And in 2 hours, I don't count up how much volume we do in terms of yardage. So I don't think it's a very useful metric. We're a little bit more looking at how the quality of their movement under a certain intensity load.
Do you have cameras underwater to check out their stroke and stuff like that?
No, we can see pretty good from an ideal world we would. But between just filming something on an iPhone, iPad, and getting a sense for, usually you can see how shoulders or hips moving is going to be indicative of what's going on underwater. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, we would have cameras under there, but I mean, if you can kind of figure it out pretty easily.
My buddy just took he's a high school swim team coach, and he took them to Miami to train this last week, and they were at some training center where I think it's the U.S., it might be in Fort Lauderdale or something.
Oh, yeah, the Hall of Fame pool.
Yeah, and they've got you can go underground and watch them. And he was showing me, I love talking swim technique with him because I stink. And he was showing me the Michigan swimmers and showing me the difference. He's like, look at this compared to how bad you are. But it's incredible to be able to see that. And so your experience with CrossFit and watching, have you coached any CrossFitters in swimming? Like any of the games athletes?
Yeah, we had Dan Bailey by here years ago now, I guess.
Did he have cannonballs at that time on his shoulders?
Man, he's a big guy. Yeah, he was in here, and then we've have 2 alumni that have made it to the games. China Cho swam
I was
years
just with
ago.
Freddie yesterday.
And then she was Ashley Vries when she was with us, Ashley Caraveau when she was in the games.
Yeah.
And then, Freddie's actually been by talking to the team also, again, years ago.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I have been incredibly critical of the swimming in CrossFit and just said, and this is coming from a bad swimmer, they look horrendous. And they still do.
Yeah, and probably maybe 5-6 years ago, somebody from CrossFit reached out and asked me to write a piece on swimming, and maybe I was too critical. The thing never got published, but it was kind of
I would kill to read that.
We need you to drop everything and get this to us. I mean, literally, they said they needed it in 8 hours, so it was literally a drop everything, do it. But yeah, I talked about the goggles, the technique, and I think it's improved a lot.
It has improved. I mean, they've got work ethic that is like no one else in the world. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, and it just must be the muscle. Could it be the muscle density of them, or
a lot of it's just being relaxed in the water? Because the difference in swimming, you're not operating off of a fixed point to lever off of, like you don't have the ground or a pull-up bar to lever off of. And I remember years ago, Brian organized a swimming cert, and we had guys like Dave Lipson. Mm-hmm. I remember he jumped in the pool, and I literally took everything out of my pocket. So I'm gonna have to go in after this guy because he was just sprinting way too hard, working way too hard. Hands were just tearing and slipping through the water. He wasn't holding anything. It'd be like you're in a car on smooth ice and you push the accelerator to the floor. The engine's doing a ton of work. Wheels are spinning. You're not going anywhere.
Interesting.
And so teaching them that balance where you're holding the water, not ripping through it is the tough part. And these are people that are used to, all gas, no brakes.
Right. But they're good at taking cues.
Yeah. I mean, Dan, when we worked with Dan, and he came over a handful of times, I think, huge difference start to finish.
Interesting. No, I've just, and maybe it is because when they go to the open water, it even gets worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw them the first year. It's where I met Kelly Starrett, was at the CrossFit Games when they did Murph down in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. And, it was the ocean. The waves were like 2 foot, and they were
that adds something.
They were all freaking out over 2 foot waves, and I was like, "These are the best, fittest people in the world, and they can't." There were people coming out of the water. Miko Salo broke his eardrum.
That's right.
And I forget her name. Got out of the water.
Somebody else. Yeah,
Deborah. I forget her name. She got out of the water. It was a disaster.
Yeah, I remember that one. And it's like, I remember texting with Dan before the event, giving him some videos on how to get in and out of the water a little bit better, as a lifeguard would, in terms of riding the waves in and jumping and diving on the way out. But even you take a really good pool swimmer that's never swum in the ocean, and it's a little distressing to have waves and chop. And if you're out of breath and you get a mouthful of water, that's going to give you a little bit of a panic response.
Sure. I just had my neighbor down the street is a lieutenant on LA County Fire, or he's a lifeguard. And they were having their testing, and a couple guys showed up with a buddy of mine, and he said, "Hey, can you take them down to meet Dave?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Oh, these guys are trying out for LA County tomorrow. They're going for the test." And I said, "Oh, what's your background?" And they go, "Oh, we both swim for Penn State." And I went, "Oh, okay." I go, "You don't need to meet them. You're going to just crush this test and you'll blah, blah, blah." So they went down, they talked to Dave and everything. And I said, "Oh, those guys are just going to, win this thing." He goes, "You'll be surprised." And I was like, "They both swim for Penn State. They're college swimmers." And he's like, next day I said, "How'd they do?" He goes, "Neither one of them made it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Come on." And he's like, "Nope." He's like, "Neither one of them made it." I was like, "I know surfers that make it that aren't competitive swimmers." And he goes, "It's a different thing, dude." And I was like, "Yeah, but."
Yeah, it's a lot different when you got a lot of water moving around on you. We were just down in San Diego for a training camp last week, and waves were pretty big. And we told that we did a beach workout, and then they had free time. And I said, you guys are good swimmers. You don't know how to swim in that kind of water. Don't go out there.
Oh, wow.
Because, we don't need to have lifeguards pulling people out on jet skis.
It'd be kind of embarrassing. The San Jose swim team just had to be rescued. But one time when I was a lifeguard, I was rescued.
Wow.
I got rescued. It was a hurricane conditions, but we were trying to save a surfer, and he shouldn't have been out. And he was in a really bad place near a jetty, and we got swept around the jetty, and the next thing I know, I was like, help.
Yeah. You can get in trouble real quick out there.
Yeah. People don't realize it's so scary.
Yeah. Years and years ago, we were at the beach in the summer in Santa Cruz, my wife, and it's probably before our daughter, son, and I. There was a huge south swell, and there was a guy that had swum out that was not a very good swimmer, and he more got pulled out than swam out. And I went out, and I wasn't very comfortable swimming out through it. It was actually like 26th. and didn't have fins. And I swam out through the shore break, swam out to him like, hey, do you need some help? And his English was a little so-so. And, this is pretty dangerous. There's rocks over there. You're not going to make it if you get pushed into the rocks. And he didn't want any help. And I went back in, and then I ended up having to go out at probably a half hour later and help him in.
Oh,
but
God.
I wasn't comfortable bringing him in.
That scares me that you weren't comfortable. Like to think that like you and your swimming ability, that you were nervous. I go, that's how scary the ocean is, and people don't understand that.
Well, I think you could just, if you have an appreciation for what can happen, you got to know the reality of the situation you're putting yourself in.
So there are so many times as a surfer now, and being a former lifeguard, people ignore people too, and I'll see it all the time when I'm surfing. I used to surf down in Venice Beach a lot of tourists, and I will see it. The lifeguards won't see it. I'll paddle over and I'll go, hey, grab onto my board. And they're like, huh? I'm like, grab onto my board. And I just know they're in a panic. And they grab, and they're like, well, I'm like, go, grab on my board. And they just grab on. I'm like, you okay? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, come on. I go, let me get you in a little closer. It gets rough out here. And I always try, because when I was a lifeguard, people are embarrassed.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be rescued because they don't want the commotion. And so you have to like say to them, like, it's not a big deal. It's just, this is rough and we're going to get you. I remember making rescues where people are crying and they're like, I don't want my friends to see me. And I'm like, you're getting your life saved here. Just shut up about your dumb friends. But, I just got this new watch and I have no idea what it does. It just goes off all the time. It does so many things. And I'm like, no, it's hooked up to like my heart rate and at times it's like, you're not standing. Okay. It tells me to breathe. And I'm like, I am. Did I stop breathing? Did the Apple Watch tell me I'm not breathing? It's really starting.
Brian's got a book about that. Unplugged.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Brian's the best. He's a maniac too. I've used a lot of Brian's breathing stuff. When you said you were working on breathing here, when you say you're doing breathing stuff, what kind of stuff would a swim team do?
We've been working with Brian on different breathing protocols for probably 6, 7, 8 years now, right from because Brian and I talk a lot, and right when he comes up on something new, he'll shoot me a text. He's like, hey bro, you got to check this out.
Right like that.
And so we were lucky enough to be on the early side of it as it's really developed. And so typical things that we're going to have through the day, the swimmers, they've got a pre-practice breathing protocol it's all customized now they have the state app. But it's, going to be similar to a pranayama or a box type of up-regulating protocol. And then they'll usually, we have a quick reset.
With your pranayama, are you doing like more of like a rhombus, like a 5, 5, 10, 5?
It's really individualized based on the relationship with CO2.
Okay.
A lot of them don't have an exhale hold on it. Some of them do, and it really just matters how they're reacting to it. And so we put them through some testing that Brian and Dr. Huberman up at Stanford really helped develop in terms of really fine-tuning. One of the things we originally realized is if we have 30 swimmers, we give them a breathing protocol, we would have an outlier on each end. Some people would be ready to take a nap. We would have people in a full-blown anxiety attack, hyperventilating, crying, and then everybody else is just ready to roll. And so we realized we've got some people that aren't responding in a typical fashion. Something that may make me sleepy may make you wired, and vice versa. Something that may make me sleepy may spike an anxiety attack in somebody. And it's all based on your relationship with CO2, your tolerance to it. And so everybody's really individualized.
So with, I remember I wrote to him one day and I said, Brian, I was doing when I trained for my big race, I did a lot of nasal breathing. Like I would say, that was my kind of thing, was I'm going to do nasal breathing. But I was also going heart rate. And Brian was like, go stop using the heart rate monitor, go on the nasal breathing. When you need to breathe out your mouth, slow down, when you're doing this long distance event, and you'll stay, aerobic and not anaerobic. So, I didn't listen to him. I used the heart rate monitor, and I kind of was like, I want to stay like below 145. And on the hills, I was obviously going over that, but I was like, for the most part, if I can stay here, I won't crash. Well, then race time came and my heart rate monitor wasn't syncing. And I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I went, oh, I'll listen to Brian. So the whole time I'm trying to nasal breathe, just, all my inhales on, through my nose. I was like, this will keep me from crashing. This is my go-to that I'm going to make it through the day. And that's, I have Brian to thank for that. But I wrote to him one day and I said, hey, what about swimming? How am I going to nasal breathe swimming? He's like, well, you're not really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is, so what do you do about that?
In terms of like, they're going to be mouth breathing in. And then interestingly, Brian had us ask the team one day, he's like, hey, ask them how they just naturally exhale, because nobody's ever taught a swimmer how to exhale in the middle of a practice, and they all exhale nasally.
Really? So it's inhale through the mouth, out through the nose.
Yeah. And we're hitting all of that. They do a lot of stuff in the weight room with it. And then the big ones, we incorporate a lot of breathing protocols within a practice. If we're looking where we more want them to recover, get a quick reset for what's coming next, they'll do some stuff with some inhale holds. It may be 5 slow nasal breaths, hold your breath at kind of a fully inhaled lungs and repeat through that a series of times. Or if it's something where we're really wanting to dose them with a high level of carbon dioxide, that'll be doing exhale holds where they're coming in, they're quote unquote out of breath, they're really tired under a pretty big metabolic demand. 5 breaths, blow all your air out, hold your breath as long as you can and repeat. And that's going to there's some similarities in terms of both are going to enhance CO2 tolerance, but those exhale hold works really massive amount of CO2 dosing, which is going to help just increase that threshold. And the higher they can get their CO2 threshold, the better they're going to utilize oxygen. And they're also really going to be able to stay composed under stress.
So that CO2 threshold, that's like when we talk about CO2 tolerance, they are at a state where you're feeling in your lungs, but you're also at a lactic acid threshold point also usually at that point. So, I mean, how are you going to differentiate the difference? When you're going, I feel like what I'm trying to say is, how do you know which one's causing it?
Well, I think you're going to get a buildup of all those metabolic waste, that there's implications on that. One of the things that we've really found is if you can have a higher CO2 tolerance, so you're operating a lot more efficiently, you're not going to get to that point where you've got the massive buildup of metabolic wastes that are...
Do you have to get that to be able to build up a CO2 tolerance? Do you have to get that through training, or can you get it just through the breath training, do you think?
Both. And we don't really differentiate. We're really weaving the two together.
So do you recommend to your swimmers, hey, go home and work on your pranayama?
Yeah. And for them, I'm not sure how much you follow just the anxiety issues, the mental health issues going on with youth, but it's a profoundly impactful problem nationwide. If you 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could walk over to our student health center right here. You could get an appointment within a day or two. If you walked over, let's say you walked over there November 1st, you're probably on a 3-month waiting list.
That's terrible. So sad.
And there's a lot of, there's physiological problems, or anxiety is a largely physiological problem in terms of just mental also. And so this really helps with that. And so they have a lot of calming protocols.
That's how I found it. I was having, I went through a stage probably, I don't know, about 10 years ago, not 10, maybe even less, 8, 9, where I was traveling too much and having just out of the blue started having panic attacks for no reason, just could not understand. And I had Mark Devine on my show who talked to me about box breathing, and that's where I was introduced to it. And he was like, start trying this. And I tried hypnotism. I tried all kinds of different things. And I was like, this is awful. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine, never went and saw a psychiatrist, but she's like, it's anxiety. Everybody goes through it. It's natural. And I was like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, what do I do? And I said, I don't want to take I don't want to take one of these drugs. Every doctor I talked to was like, hey, Luna, you want some Xanax? I mean, it was like, they were like, I went to see my sister's kid's pediatrician one day because I had a laryngitis. I was in New York. I had to do a show. And she's like, go see, I won't say her name, but go see the doctor. So I went in and I'm sitting there and she knows all about my comedy career. And I saw you on TV the other night. Blah, blah, blah. She goes, how you doing? I go, yeah, everything's good. And she says, how's the travel? I'm like, I'm kind of having these panic attacks. She goes, you want some Xanax? And it's like, why is everybody shoveling Xanax? And so I worked on it. I did a lot of breath work and, some mental techniques of like stopping the triggers. And I hate to say this because I don't want to give anyone false hope, but I've cured it to the point of I never get it. Never, ever, ever. And I'm able to, if I feel it coming on, I can stop it so quickly that I wish I could teach it to people.
Yeah.
But because I don't want anyone to ever feel like that. And I don't know if I'm special that I just figured it out or if what I know is teachable. But it was something when I hear people and see them, I'm like, there's a solution to this. Don't go take that pill. There is a solution. And then people will always say, yeah, you have no idea. I'm like, oh, I know. I was trembling, like on an airplane wanting to open the emergency exit and jump off. I know what it feels like. And it is, I tell everybody, I've recommended Brian's app. Brian had me using the apnea trainer. Mm-hmm. They're great. They're great. And everybody, I still do it. I do about 10 minutes of breath work every single day. I do it for surfing. So,
yeah,
and I've had to learn to calm down in the water like that. That's a big, big, big one, with waves. Yeah. And if you get nervous, it's over.
Yeah.
So you have to calm by, it's almost like counter. It's weird. You're in the most terrifying situation of your life and you have to do the opposite of what your body wants to do.
Yeah. And being able to take control of that physiology it's once you can get there, it's really, I don't know if fun's the right word, but empowering for sure.
So I didn't realize that swimmers have to do that they're at that point where they've just pushed themselves physically so hard, I'm so, my thinking of swimming is so simple that I'm like, do they just like sometimes at the end of a race, do they just not take any breaths because they're just trying to push for that sprint to the finish line and putting themselves at that point where they could almost do like a, blackout?
Yeah. And that's the reality. They're pushing themselves.
Does that happen?
Hard.
Does anyone ever black out?
I know of one person, this was back in my day, swimming, that blacked out in a race from not breathing at the end. I had a friend that swam at UCLA that blacked out in the middle of a set, but there's actually been a number of swimmers that have died over the last 6, 8, 10 years in practices, usually from holding their breath and swimming underwater.
Yeah.
And that's really dangerous.
I knew a kid like that when we were younger.
Yeah, and so we don't push underwater swimming. I would say my team can hold their breath longer than probably anybody else out there, or at least as long, and we're not doing it in the water. We're doing it through these breathing protocols where it's safe. I don't have to worry about somebody going down in the pool. I mean, it's stupid, especially with you can do something in a very safe way. We're going to pick safety.
Does that even doing those, like, I got a bunch of guys that have been on the show that are Navy SEALs, and they talk about, that's one of the things they have to do. I think it's 50.
Yeah, 50
underwater. And Zach Forrest, who's been on the show many times, he's a good friend. He told me, I said, what was your specialty in like the SEALs? What got you through it? And he goes, well, we got to do that 50 underwater. And they said either make it or pass out trying. He goes, I passed out every time.
Yeah.
And I was like, you what? And he's like, yeah, I would just go till I could go. And then somebody be like waking me up and they're like, this guy's crazy. We got to have him be a SEAL.
Yeah.
Is that just a mental test, or is that increasing your ability to tolerate CO2 at all by pushing yourself to do that?
Yeah, but there's definitely going to be a training impact. I mean, those guys, you look at special operators, they've got different needs in terms of making it in the door and staying in that room than a competitive swimmer. And so, yeah, if I was working with SEALs, we would be doing stuff that's a little bit more pushing those envelopes, but you also have guys in scuba equipment all around ready to pull people out. It's not a foggy pool where you can't really see the bottom maybe, or somebody could go down and you don't notice them.
Because there's a lot of guys teaching. Laird was doing his thing, and there's a lot of guys now. I think it's Mark Visser teaching this, like, it's kind of like big wave breath work to be able to tolerate when you get held down. And I talked to a lot of the big wave guys. I'm like, what's the longest you're held down? And I just watched the Jaws competition, and people think, a minute or 2 minutes. You're getting held down for 12 seconds, but that's the longest 12 seconds of your entire life. Like,
you're getting beaten up for the 12 seconds.
Yeah, I sometimes count when on like a big wave and see how long I'm held down, and it's about 6 when you pop back up on a big one.
Yeah.
So when those guys on Jaws, a buddy of mine, Albie Laird, just got smashed at the Jaws competition, and I kept counting to see how long he was when he would pop up, and then when he would go back under for the set coming through, and it was about 12 seconds, and I'm like, I try to tell people, I go run 100 meters as fast as you can, and then hold your breath
while you're getting beaten up. Yeah. And then the big one with those guys is the worry of a two-wave hold down where you don't get the breath and you just stay down.
Oh, it's like my biggest fear in the entire world. I've gotten myself into, Albie has agreed to do stand-up comedy if I surf Jaws. Yeah. So Surfer Magazine is doing they're doing a 7-part series on us, and his, preparing to do stand up in mind. They took me down to San Diego, and I did the towing in, and I've been training. And I just, like, when I was out at Santa Cruz and it was 10 foot the other day, I was like, I'm not going to Jaws. It's just not happening.
Yeah. The difference between 10 feet in Santa Cruz and Jaws is Mount Everest.
Well, they told me I'm not going to do Jaws, big Jaws. I'm going to do like Jaws, like the day before the swell or the day after the swell. But I also get inflatable vest. I get 2 jet skis that are going to be like watching over me. And Albie's like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Then I watched the competition, watched him get a concussion. And I was like, I'm not going to be fine. I called him. I was like, he's in the hospital. I'm like, do you understand what's going to happen to me? He's like, I called the editor of Surfer. I'm like,
I'm out.
We need to call this shit off. I am not, but I keep saying I'm going to do it. So
getting towed in is obviously a lot different than paddling in.
Yeah. Whole world of difference.
Yeah.
When you're towing in, from my experience now doing it, you don't even know you're in it till you're in it.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, you're just like, I just got to keep going.
You're just running.
Yeah. That's all. They want to make shirts that say Eddie wouldn't go. And the other one is, I keep telling people, they're like, are you going to get barreled? I'm like, I'm going to get channeled. my goal is to get into the channel as fast as I can. And once I get in the channel, declare victory and never
get back on the beach,
get on the boat as fast as possible and into the beach, and never, ever, ever do it again. A few more questions I got for you. So why did you not do triathlons? I would see you as being like
I've done a couple. I'm a horrible runner. And a lot of that is, Brian calls me Gumby, just with hypermobility. And I've gotten a lot better at running just through doing the drills. I remember years ago, I think it was when we launched Power Speed Endurance, and he had a group of us that we needed to get a clip and then say something. And he sent me a text. I think the direct quote was, whatever you do, don't fucking heel strike. And so I practiced, and I shot the video. I sent it to him. I'm like, all right, how's this? He's like, bro, that was way better than I thought. But it was also a 5-second run I put together. So yeah, the running form is just something that I never really pursued that much. I mean,
Right.
if I made it important, I could do it, but.
So what was your best finish when college swimming, when you were doing it?
Well, I was Division II at Bakersfield, and I was top 8 in the 200 breasted NCs, and exactly where I placed, I don't remember. I want to say it was probably 6th, 7th, somewhere in there.
Where did they have the national championships for?
That was in Canton, Ohio that year.
And then do you have swimmers here at San Jose that are potential Olympics this next year?
No, we're a little bit thinner than we've been in the past. We've been swimming off campus for the last 3 years while they constructed the Taj Mahal here for us, and we were not in a good facility for 3 years, and the implications of trying to recruit kids in and say, hey, come here, you're going to be off campus. And then, of course, I've got colleagues in the college swimming ranks that were calling our recruits and saying, that pool's not going to be done in 3 years. It's going to be 7 years, 8 years. You're never going to swim there. So now that we're back home, recruiting has really changed.
Oh, I can imagine. You know, when I walked in here, I was like, oh, my God, like, how do you not have the top swim program in the this is incredible.
Yeah, so I think in about 3 years we're going to be rolling again.
So do you guys train with the men at all at the same time, or is there any?
We don't have a men's team here, women only.
Don't. Yeah. Oh, I wondered because like we had men's and women's track at Pitt, and we always practice together. But people don't understand. They'll go, "Hey, do you know so and so? He ran at Pitt." I'm like, he was a distance runner. I'm like, those are two different sports. Yeah, like we never even saw them. Like we didn't talk to them. I didn't know them. I knew them like I knew the wrestlers. It was a different sport. Yeah, I'm actually going to the swimming Olympic trials this year.
Oh, cool.
Because my buddy's got one of his high school kids is one of the top 50 swimmers, David Curtis. He's swimming like a 50 yard. He's like 19 something. I think he's got like the fastest time in the country right now. And I work a comedy club there, and I hate going to Omaha. No offense, Omaha. But it's just like I need to be near water, like the beach or the mountains. And so I said, he's like, you should come to Omaha, you know. And I said, well, I'll just arrange my date when I'm at the comedy club the same time, and I'll go watch. And then it turned out my other buddy's got a kid swimming in it too. And then I know a woman, you know, Carol Zaleski. Yeah. So the country club swimming that I grew up in, Carol Zaleski, I grew up with her kids.
Oh, wow.
They were all great swimmers. She had like 5 kids, and they're all really good. Jerry and Kristen were really, really good. And Carol, I think she's like the head of U.S. swimming.
She was president for a while, I think. I'm not sure if she still is or not, but I know she was really high up in the governance for quite a while.
So, so it's I don't think I've gone to a swim meet ever. And I'm going to the Olympic trials.
This will be a fun one.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting. Yeah. So, you're still working, Brian, currently?
Yeah, I'm still with Power Speed Endurance, running the swimming end of it.
More people need to use that. I feel like when I use Brian's stuff, it's just unbelievable. And I try to push it out to everyone. I'm like, it's incredible. When I've worked with him, he's helped me so much. And I said I was going to do an Ironman this year. And so I'm probably going to be bugging you then.
Yeah, bring it on. Yeah, and I think, going through, I'd encourage anybody to go through one of our 9-week cycles. Right. And as you start developing those gear systems with all the breath work we incorporate, can really be just a game changer in terms of monitoring and pacing, if you will, just your output.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to meet you, Whitney. You got to shut up. You just talked way too much. Whitney is assistant coach here. How long have you been here?
This is my first year, so I've been here for around 6-7 months now.
Yeah, you look like you're about 18, so it does. It looks a little weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. Did you just get out of college?
3 years ago. So
really?
I started in 2017.
Oh, okay. And so you're what is this it? You're gonna be a swim coach for your whole, like, this is what you want to do?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
That's awesome. This is my buddy is swim coach in New Jersey, and it's like, I've got to say, I read the letters that I get from parents about it, and it's the most awesome thing in the world. Like, he's so motivational and does so much, like what he does for kids and their mentality and their confidence, and I love it. I would never compliment him to his face. Ever. I call him fat. I call him bald. I tell him no one likes him, but he and this is like the sappiest thing I've ever said on the show. He like inspires me. Like when I see how when I've gone to his swim, like I sometimes walk into his practice when I'm down there, and I just watch the way he coaches and everything. I'm like, wow, like it's inspiring. So what you do is an awesome thing. I don't know about you, Whitney. You've only been here 3 years, and but thanks for doing the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is
and
great.
so the best thing, the people that listen to this, they're all CrossFitters and they're probably really shitty swimmers. So if they want help, Power Speed Endurance. Or
hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah. So what is your Instagram?
Sage Hopkins.
Sage Hopkins. And I'm going to add you to, I don't know why I didn't. And Whitney, do you want them? You don't want them bothering you? What's your Instagram?
Whitney Jorg.
Whitney Jorg. How do you spell Jorg?
Jorg.
That's what I would. That's how I would have done it. If you said you have gun to your head, how do you spell Jorg? I would have gotten that. Whitney Jorg. And I had one last question for you about that. About I can't remember what it was, so we're just gonna have to end. And then I'll, like 2 seconds after I turn this off, I'm like, oh my god, that was the most important question that I had to ask. And and then the fans will write to me. I can't believe you didn't ask that question. I know what it was. Do you watch the games at all?
I haven't watched the last couple. I was at the first few games. I worked on the medical end of them for the first few games. And I think there was just maybe I moved away from it. It changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that changed for good, bad, just it hasn't really intrigued me like it did in the past.
Yeah. I think everybody has a phase in it where they get into it and then they kind of get out of it. It's such an intense thing. The games, CrossFit, everything, competing, whatever, that you can't stay fully in it for a long, like even the biggest, best guys are like, I'm tapped out. But this last year they had, I think it was a swim, paddle, run. I forget what the event was, but
I follow along a little here and there, mostly off of just following, see how China does.
Sure.
But yeah, I seem to remember there was something with paddling and
there was a swim and a paddle. Maybe it was could it have been a swim, paddle, swim? I forget.
Maybe.
The listeners right now are so angry. Anyway, the winner, they sent both the men and women out at the same time. Winner was a woman.
Nice.
Who is the top CrossFitter in the world? Tia.
Mm-hmm.
Tia Clark-Sumi beat all the men. And there are some good swimmers, for the most part, that of the top CrossFitters, like 3 or 4 of the men can swim really well.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them, I'm like, I think I could beat you. Like, you're the fittest man in the world. And I've gotten this argument with my former co-host of the show. I was timing whatever their split was. I was like, I was timing them getting in and out of the water. I'm like, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
And the best guys in the world are swimming these times. And my argument was, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about before the beginning of the show, and I forgot. In CrossFit, I always say, if you took somebody who is a top Olympic lifter, someone who's a top runner, someone who's a top gymnast, but they're profound at everything, like they're able to compete at everything, but they're really good at one of these, who's going to win? It's always going to be the Olympic weightlifter.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said CrossFit has catered to that kind of weightlifting more than all these disciplines, saying, so it's skewed. And I would rather see it over. And I said, swimming should be considered one of those. And their swimming is horrendous.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what the
I think it takes a lot of time. Swimming's, it's not a normal thing for a human to do. We're land creatures, not water creatures. And to develop that efficiency base takes a lot of time.
So what's your advice to like your average CrossFitter to get better at swimming?
I would say the big one that we work on a lot is just monitoring how many strokes you're taking per lap, and look at that as just kind of like a fuel efficiency in your car, and look to improve that number of strokes per lap as you get faster in the pool also.
And should you just count those yourself or film yourself swimming?
I would encourage both.
Okay.
And I have CrossFitters on occasion will reach out to me on Instagram, shoot me a video, and I'll usually get right back to them with like, hey, do this and this.
That's really nice of you, because open micers send me their comedy. And I go, hey, can you watch this? And I go, no, I can't. There's nothing worse than watching bad comedy. And if it's a friend, I'm like, all right. But like when average people just, hey, dude, could you check out my show? I'm like, no, what's wrong with you? I don't even watch my own stuff. I'm not going to watch yours. That's really, really nice of you, though. And I can't wait to send you my swimming. I have a video. Oh, it's on there. My friends, I'm swimming, and my two friends that are swim coaches are standing on a bridge. It's in the bay, and they're just tearing me apart. Like, it's like behind my back. They're like, oh, this is the worst swimming we've ever seen. Look at his catch. Oh, look at where his hand's going in. Oh, so I called my friend Caroline, who is an former Olympian. And I go, do me a favor, post on my page saying how good my stroke is. And so she did. And then I was like, guys, I think I trust her more than you. I don't know what you guys
Olympic
think.
medalist.
Yeah. But thanks for doing the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know how busy, like you're running a college program, and to do this with me, because I'm an idiot. And it was really fun. This was so much more fun than talking to CrossFitters, because they all are like, it's inspirational, and I want to make myself and the world a better place. And this is just awesome. And I'm so interested in it. So thank you. Thank you, Sage, Whitney. And next time I'm in town, you got to come see a show. And,
Definitely.
If you're listening, like I said, check out Sage's Instagram. Send them all your videos. Everybody, send them a video. Get in your bathtub and start paddling. And send it.
Go to private.
Yeah. I hope you get some. I hope you do. And Whitney, don't send her anything. She's busy. She's probably playing on Instagram and just all day. She a good coach?
Very good coach.
If she wasn't here, would you say she's a good coach?
I would, yeah.
Okay. Is she hard on them?
I'd say she's perfect with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's best assistant I've had in years and years and years and years.
Well, I never would have thought. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Whitney. So thanks for listening. Go to iTunes, rate, review, comment, and also check out my schedule. I'm touring. I don't know when this is airing, so I don't know where I am. I could be in Las Vegas. I could be in Lake Tahoe. I could be in Boston. I could be in Australia. I could be in Saudi Arabia. I've got 2 gigs coming up, one in Saudi Arabia, one in Australia. Saudi Arabia, don't know if I'm going. We're kind of in a little war right now, thanks, Mr. Trump. And Australia's on fire. So those are my 2 biggest.
You got Tahoe.
Those are my 2 biggest paying gigs of the year. So looks like the kids aren't going to eat. So give to our Patreon. That'll save the kids. Thanks a lot for listening, and goodbye.